Saul spoke to Jonathan and to all his servants saying that they should kill David, but Jonathan delighted greatly in David. So he told David that his father seeks to kill him, and suggested that he be on his guard until morning and stay in a secret place and hide. He told David that he was going out and stand beside his father in the field, and would speak to his father about him, and what he would observe he would tell him. Then Jonathan spoke well of David to Saul his father, and said to him, Let not the king sin against his servant, against David, because he has not sinned against you, and his works have been very good toward you. He took his life in his hands and killed the Philistine, and the Lord brought about a great deliverance for all Israel. You saw it and rejoiced. Why then will you sin against innocent blood, to kill David without a cause? Saul heeded the voice of Jonathan, and he swore, As the Lord lives, David would not be killed. Then Jonathan called David, and told him everything. Jonathan brought David to Saul, and he was in his presence as in times past. There was war again, and David went out and fought with the Philistines and struck them with a mighty blow, and they fled from him. Now the distressing spirit from the Lord came upon Saul as he sat in his house with his spear in his hand. David was playing music. Then Saul sought again to pin David to the wall with the spear, but David slipped away from Saul's presence, and Saul drove the spear into the wall. David fled and escaped that night. Saul also sent messengers to David's house to watch him and to kill him when morning came. Michal, David's wife, told him saying, If you do not save your life tonight, tomorrow you will be killed. Then Michal let David down through a window. He fled and escaped. Michal took an image and laid it in the bed, put a cover of goat's hair for his head, and covered it with clothes. When Saul sent messengers to take David, Michal said, He is sick. Then Saul sent the messengers back to see David saying, Bring him up to me in the bed, that I may kill him. And when the messengers had come in, there was the image in the bed with a cover of goat's hair for his head. Then Saul said to Michal, Why have you deceived me like this and sent my enemy away, so that he has escaped? Michal answered Saul, He said to me, Let me go. Why should I kill you? David fled and went to Samuel at Ramah and told him all that Saul had done to him. Then he and Samuel went and stayed in Naioth. Saul was told to take note, David was at Naioth in Ramah. Then Saul sent messengers to take David. And when they saw the group of prophets prophesying, and Samuel standing as leader over them, the Spirit of God came upon the messengers of Saul and they prophesied. When Saul was told, he sent other messengers and they prophesied likewise. Then Saul sent messengers again the third time, and they prophesied. Then he also went to Ramah, and came to the great well that is at Succoth. He asked and said, Where are Samuel and David? So someone said, Indeed they are at Naioth in Ramah. Therefore, Saul went there to Naioth in Ramah. Then the Spirit of God was upon him also, and he went on and prophesied until he came to Naioth in Ramah. He stripped off his clothes and prophesied before Samuel in like manner, and lay down naked all that day and all that night. Therefore they say, Is Saul also among the prophets? David fled from Naioth in Ramah, came to Jonathan and asked, What have I done? What is my iniquity, and what is my sin before your father that he seeks my life? Jonathan said to him, By no means. You will not die. Indeed, my father will do nothing either great or small without first telling me. Why should my father hide this from me? It is not so. Then David took an oath again, and said, Your father certainly knows that I have found favor in your eyes, and he has said, Do not let Jonathan know this lest he be grieved. But truly, as the Lord lives and as your soul lives, there is but a step between me and death. Jonathan said to David, Whatever you yourself desire, I will do it for you. David said, Indeed tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king to eat. However, let me go, that I may hide in the field until the third day at evening. If your father misses me at all, then say, David earnestly asked permission of me that he might run over to Bethlehem, his city, for there is a yearly sacrifice there for all the family. If he says, "It is well, your servant will be safe." However, if he is very angry, be sure that he determines evil. Therefore, you should deal kindly with your servant, for you have brought your servant into a covenant of the Lord with you. Nevertheless, if there is iniquity in me, kill me yourself, for why should you bring me to your father? Then Jonathan said, Far be it from you. For if I knew certainly that evil was determined by my father to come upon you, would I not tell you? Then David said, Who will tell me, or what if your father answers you roughly? Jonathan said, Come, let us go out into the field. And both of them went out into the field. Then Jonathan said to David, The Lord God of Israel is witness. I will sound out my father sometime tomorrow, or the third day. Indeed there is good toward you, and if I do not send to tell you, may the Lord do so and much more to me. However, if it pleases my father to do you evil, then I will report it to you and send you away that you may go in safety. The Lord will be with you as he has been with my father. Then you will not only show me the kindness of the Lord while I still live, that I may not die, but you will not cut off the kindness from my house forever, no, not when the Lord has cut off every one of your enemies from the face of the earth. Therefore, Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David saying, Let the Lord require it at the hand of David's enemies. Now Jonathan again caused David to vow, because he loved him, for he loved him as he loved his own soul. Then Jonathan said to David, Tomorrow is the new moon, and you will be missed, because your seat will be empty. When you have stayed 3 days, go down quickly and come to the place where you hid on the day of the deed, and remain by the stone Ezel. Then I will shoot 3 arrows to the side, as though I shot at a target, and there I will send a lad saying, Go and find the arrows. If I expressly say to the lad, Look, the arrows are on this side of you, get them and come then, as the Lord lives, there is safety for you and no harm. However, if I say to the young man, Look, the arrows are beyond you, go your way for the Lord has sent you away. As for the matter which you and I have spoken of, indeed the Lord will be between you and me forever. Then David hid in the field. When the new moon had come, the king sat down to eat the feast. Now the king sat on his seat, as at other times, on a seat by the wall. Jonathan arose, and Abner sat by Saul's side, but David's place was empty. Nevertheless, Saul did not say anything that day, for he thought, Something has happened to him, he is unclean, surely he is unclean. Then it happened the next day, the second day of the month, that David's place was empty. Saul said to Jonathan his son, Why has the son of Jesse not come to eat, either yesterday or today? Then Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked permission of me to go to Bethlehem. He said, Please let me go, for our family has a sacrifice in the city, and my brother has commanded me to be there. Now, if I have found favor in your eyes, please let me get away and see my brothers. Therefore, he has not come to the king's table. Then Saul's anger was aroused against Jonathan, and he said to him, You son of a perverse rebellious woman. Do I not know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame and the shame of your mother's nakedness? As long as the son of Jesse lives on the earth, you will not be established, nor your kingdom. Now therefore, send and bring him to me, for he will surely die. Jonathan answered Saul his father and said to him, Why should he be killed? What has he done? Then Saul cast a spear at him to kill him, by which Jonathan knew that it was determined by his father to kill David. So he arose from the table in fierce anger, and ate no food the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David, because his father had treated him shamefully. Now it was in the morning, that Jonathan went out into the field at the time appointed with David, and a little lad was with him. Then he said to his lad, Now run and find the arrows which I shoot. As the lad ran, he shot an arrow beyond him. When the lad had come to the place where the arrow was, which Jonathan had shot, Jonathan cried out after the lad, Make haste, hurry, and do not delay. Then Jonathan's lad gathered up the arrows and came back to his master. But the lad did not know anything. Only Jonathan and David knew of the matter. Then Jonathan gave his weapons to his lad, and said to him, "Go, and carry them to the city." As soon as the lad had gone, David arose from a place toward the south, fell on his face to the ground and bowed down 3 times. Then they kissed one another, and they wept together, but David more so. Then Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, since we have both sworn in the name of the Lord, saying, May the Lord be between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants, forever." Then David arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. David came to Nob, a priestly community. After Shiloh was destroyed, the tabernacle was placed here. David came to Abimelech the priest. Abimelech was afraid when he met David, and said to him, "Why are you alone, and no one with you?" David said to him, "The king has ordered me on some business, and said to me, Do not let anyone know anything about the business on which I send you, or what I have commanded you." But David had deceived Ahimelech by a non-truth, that he was on a secret mission for King Saul, and this lie would cause Ahimelech and his household of 85 priests to be murdered by the hands of Doeg, the Edomite, who was set over the servants of Saul. David went on to say, "I have directed my young men to such and such a place. Now therefore, what have you on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread in my hand, or whatever can be found." The priest answered David and said, "There is no common bread on hand, but there is holy bread, if the young men have at least kept themselves from women." Then David answered the priest, and said to him, "Truly, women have been kept from us about 3 days since I came out. Therefore, the vessels of the young men are holy, and the bread is in effect common, even though it was consecrated in the vessel this day." Then the priest gave David holy bread, for there was no bread there but the show bread, which had been taken from before the Lord, in order to put hot bread in its place on the day when it was taken away. A certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord. His name was Doeg, an Edomite, the chief of the herdsmen who belonged to Saul. David said to Ahimelech, "Is there not here on hand a spear or a sword? For I have brought neither my sword nor my weapons with me, because the king's business requires haste." Then the priest said, "The sword of Goliath the Philistine whom you killed in the valley of Elah, there it is enwrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If you will take that, take it, for there is no other except that one here." David said, "There is none like it, give it to me." Then David arose and fled that day from before Saul, and went to Achish the king of Gath, one of the 5 major cities of the Philistines. The servants of Achish said to him, "Is this not David the king of the land? Did they not sing of him to one another in dances, saying, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s? Now David took these words to heart, and was very much afraid of Achish the king of Gath. Therefore, he changed his behavior before them, pretended madness in their hands, scratched on the doors of the gate, and let his saliva fall down on his beard. Then Achish said to his servants, "Look, you see the man is insane. Why have you brought him to me? Have I need of madmen that you have brought this fellow to play the madman in my presence? Should this fellow come into my house?" David departed from Gath and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And when his brothers and all his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. Also, everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was discontented gathered to him. So he became captain over them. There were about 400 men with him. Then David went from there to Mizpah of Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, "Please let my father and mother come here with you, until I know what God will do for me." So he brought them before the king of Moab, and they dwelt with him all the time that David was in the stronghold. Now the prophet Gad said to David, "Do not stay in the stronghold, depart and go to the land of Judah." So David departed and went into the forest of Hereth. When Saul heard that David and the men who were with him had been discovered, now Saul was staying in Gibeah under a tamarisk tree in Ramah, with his spear in his hand, and all his servants standing about him. Then Saul said to his servants who stood about him, Hear now, you Benjamites. Will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards, and make you all captains of thousands and captains of hundreds? All of you have conspired against me, and there is no one who reveals to me that my son has made a covenant with the son of Jesse, and there is no one of you who is sorry for me or reveals to me that my son has stirred up my servant against me, to lie in wait, as it is this day. Ahimelech answered the king and said, Who among all your servants is as faithful as David, who is the king's son-in-law, who goes at your bidding, and is honorable in your house? Did I then begin to inquire of God for him? Far be it from me. Let not the king impute anything to his servant, or to any in the house of my father, for your servant knew nothing of all this, little or much. Saul said, You will surely die, Ahimelech, you and your entire father's house. Then the king said to the guards who stood about him, Turn and kill the priests of the Lord, because their hand also is with David, and because they knew when he fled and did not tell it to me. But the servants of the king would not lift their hands to strike the priests of the Lord. The king said to Doeg, You turn and kill the priest. So Doeg the Edomite turned and struck the priests, and killed on that day 85 men who wore a linen ephod. Also Nob, the city of the priests, he struck with the edge of the sword, both men and women, children and nursing infants, oxen and donkeys and sheep, with the edge of the sword. It was easy for Doeg the Edomite to kill the priest of God, for he did not fear the Lord as Saul's servants. They would not lift their hands to kill the priests of the Lord. Now one of the sons of Ahimelech, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. Then Abiathar told David that Saul had killed the Lord's priests. Then David said to Abiathar, I knew that day, when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul. I have caused the death of all the persons of your father's house. Stay with me, do not fear, for he who seeks my life seek your life, but with me you will be safe. David was told that the Philistines were fighting against Keilah, a city that belonged to Judah, and they were robbing the threshing floors. Therefore, David inquired of the Lord saying, Should I go and attack these Philistines? The Lord said to David, Go and attack the Philistines and save Keilah. But David's men said to him, Look, we are afraid here in Judah. How much more than if we go to Keilah against the armies of the Philistines? Then David inquired of the Lord again, and the Lord answered him and said, Arise, go down to Keilah, for I will deliver the Philistines into your hand. Therefore, David and his men went to Keilah and fought with the Philistines, struck them with a mighty blow, took away their livestock, and David saved the inhabitants of Keilah. When Abiathar the son of Ahimelech fled to David at Keilah, he went down with an ephod in his hand. Saul was told that David had gone to Keilah. And Saul said, God has delivered him into my hand, for he has shut himself in by entering a town that has gates and bars. Then Saul called all the people together for war, to go down to Keilah to besiege David and his men. When David knew that Saul plotted evil against him, he said to Abiathar the priest, Bring the ephod here. Then David said, O Lord God of Israel, your servant has certainly heard that Saul seeks to come to Keilah to destroy the city for my sake. Will the men of Keilah deliver me into his hand? Will Saul come down, as your servant has heard? O Lord God of Israel, I pray, tell your servant. The Lord said, He will come down. Then David said, Will the men of Keilah deliver me and my men into the hand of Saul? The Lord said, They will deliver you. So David and his men, about 600, left Keilah and went wherever they could go. Then it was told Saul that David had escaped from Keilah, so he halted the expedition. David stayed in strongholds in the wilderness and remained in the mountains in the wilderness of Ziph, a barren region that had many ravines and caves, located about 4 miles southeast of Hebron. Saul sought David every day, but God did not deliver him into his hand. David was in the wilderness of Ziph in a forest. Then Jonathan, Saul's son, went to David in the woods and strengthened his hand in God. He said to him, Do not fear, for the hand of Saul my father will not find you. You will be king over Israel, and I will be next to you. Even my father Saul knows that." There, the two of them made a covenant before the Lord, and David stayed in the woods, and Jonathan went to his own house. Then the Ziphites came up to Saul at Gibeah, saying, "Is David not hiding with us in strongholds in the woods, in the hill of Hachilah, which is on the south of Shimon? Now therefore, O king, come down according to all the desire of your soul to come down, and our part will be to deliver him into the king's hand." Saul said, "Blessed are you of the Lord, for you having compassion on me. Please go and find out for sure, and see the place where his hideout is, and who has seen him there. For I am told he is very crafty. See therefore, and take knowledge of all the lurking places where he hides, and come back to me with certainty, and I will go with you. It will be if he is in the land, I will search for him throughout all the clans of Judah." Then they went to Ziph before Saul. But David and his men were in the wilderness of Mon, in the plain on the south of Shimon. When Saul and his men went to seek him, they told David. Then David went down to the rock and stayed in the wilderness of Mon. When Saul heard that, he pursued David in the wilderness of Mon. Then Saul went on one side of the mountain, and David and his men on the other side of the mountain. Then David made haste to get away from Saul, for Saul and his men were encircling David and his men to take them. Yet, a messenger came to Saul, saying, "Hurry and come, for the Philistines have invaded the land." So Saul returned from pursuing David, and went against the Philistines, so they called that place the Rock of Escape. Then David went up from there and dwelt in strongholds at En-Gedi. When Saul returned from following the Philistines, it was told him saying, "Take note. David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi." Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men from all Israel, and went to seek David and his men on the rocks of the wild goats. Then he came to the sheepfolds by the road, where there was a cave, and Saul went in to attend to his needs. David and his men were staying in the recesses of the cave. Then the men of David said to him, "This is the day which the Lord said to you, Behold, I will deliver your enemy into your hand that you may do to him as it seems good to you." David secretly cut off a corner of Saul's robe. Now it happened afterward that David's heart troubled him because he had cut Saul's robe. Then he said to the men, "The Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch out my hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord." Therefore, David restrained his servants with these words, and did not allow them to rise against Saul. Saul got up from the cave and went on his way. David also arose afterward, went out of the cave, and called out to Saul saying, "My lord the king." And when Saul looked behind him, David stooped with his face to the earth, and bowed down. Then David said to Saul, "Why do you listen to the words of men who say, Indeed David seeks your harm? Look, this day your eyes have seen that the Lord delivered you today into my hand in the cave, and someone urged me to kill you. However, my eye spared you, and I said, I will not kill you, know and see that there is neither evil nor rebellion in my hand, and I have not sinned against you. Yet you hunt my life to take it? Let the Lord judge between you and me, and let the Lord avenge me on you. However, my hand will not be against you. As the proverb of the ancients says, wickedness proceeds from the wicked. But my hand will not be against you. After whom has the king of Israel come out? Whom do you pursue? A dead dog? A flea? Therefore, let the Lord be judge, and judge between you and me, and see and plead my case, and deliver me out of your hand." It was when David had finished speaking these words to Saul, that Saul said, "Is this your voice, my son David?" Then Saul lifted up his voice and wept. Then he said to David, "You are more righteous than I, for you have rewarded me with good, whereas I have rewarded you with evil. So you have shown this day how you have dealt well with me, that when the Lord delivered me into your hand, you did not kill me. For if a man finds his enemy, will he let him get away safely? Then may the Lord reward you with good for what you have done to me this day." Now I know indeed that you will surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel will be established in your hand. Now, swear now to me by the Lord that you will not cut off my descendants after me and that you will not destroy my name from my father's house. Then David swore to Saul, and he went home, but David and his men went up to the stronghold. Now not long after this, Saul again continues to seek and kill David. Saul was at Gibeah and the Ziphites came to him saying, David is hiding in the hill of Hachilah, opposite Shimon. Then Saul arose and went down to the wilderness of Ziph, having 3,000 chosen men of Israel with him, to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. Saul encamped in the hill of Hachilah, which is opposite Shimon, by the road. But David stayed in the wilderness, and he saw that Saul came after him into the wilderness. David therefore sent spies, and understood that Saul had indeed come. Then David arose and came to the place where Saul had encamped. David saw the place where Saul lay, and Abner the commander of his army. Now Saul lay within the camp, with the people encamped all around him. Then David answered and said to Ahimelech the Hittite, and to Abishai the brother of Joab saying, Who will go down with me to Saul in the camp? Abishai said, I will go down with you. So David and Abishai came to the people by night, and there Saul lay sleeping within the camp, with his spear stuck in the ground by his head. Abner and the people lay all around him. Then Abishai said to David, God has delivered your enemy into your hand this day. Now therefore, please, let me strike him at once with the spear, right to the earth, and I will not have to strike him a second time. But David said to Abishai, Do not destroy him, for who can stretch out his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? David said furthermore, As the Lord lives, the Lord will strike him, or his day will come to die, or he will go out to battle and perish. The Lord forbids that I should stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed. But please, take now the spear and the jug of water that are by his head, and let us go. David took the spear and the jug of water by Saul's head, and they got away, and no man saw or knew it or awoke, for they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord had fallen on them. Now David went over to the other side and stood on the top of a hill afar off, a great distance between them. Then David called out to the people and to Abner saying, Do you not answer, Abner? Abner answered and said, Who are you, calling out to the king? David said to Abner, Are you not a man? And who is like you in Israel? Why then have you not guarded your lord the king? One of the people came in to destroy your lord the king. This thing that you have done is not good. As the Lord lives, you deserve to die because you have not guarded your master, the Lord's anointed. Now see where the king's spear is and the jug of water that was by his head. Then Saul knew David's voice and he said, Is that your voice, my son David? David said, It is my voice, my lord, O king. Then he said, Why does my lord pursue his servant? For what have I done, or what evil is in my hand? Now therefore, please, let my lord the king hear the words of his servant. If the Lord has stirred you up against me, let him accept an offering. But if it is the children of men, may they be cursed before the Lord, for they have driven me out this day from sharing in the inheritance of the Lord, saying, Go and serve other gods. So now, do not let my blood fall to the earth before the face of the Lord, for the king of Israel has come out to seek a flea, as when one hunts a partridge in the mountains. Then Saul said, I have sinned. Return, my son David, for I will harm you no more, because my life was precious in your eyes this day. Indeed I have played the fool and erred exceedingly. David answered and said, Here is the king's spear. Let one of the young men come over and get it. May the Lord repay every man for his righteousness and faithfulness, for the Lord delivered you into my hand today, but I would not stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed. Indeed, as your life was valued much this day in my eyes, so let my life be valued much in the eyes of the Lord, and let him deliver me out of all tribulation. Then, Saul said to David, May you be blessed, my son David. You will do great things and still prevail. Therefore David went on his way, and Saul returned to his place. Thanks for listening. If this Bible video was a blessing to you, please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks.